I know exactly how many people are involved in a day like today. There's I would estimate over 200 people that are directly or indirectly involved in today in the successful class of the young men we were able to add. Starting off with President Barker and the Clemson Board of Trustees and their support for our athletic department. And also Athletic Director Dan Radakovich has been a great addition and has done a great job in recruiting. We've been using him on the official visit weekends, along with our former Athletic Director Terry Don Phillips, that's done a great job giving us support to go out and do what we need to do. Athletic department staff that do a great job of letting our coaches do what we need to do in recruiting as far as travel and facilities and those type of things. Billy DeAndre and Travis Furby over at IPTAY do an excellent job. And just really want to thank all of our fans and the supporters of IPTAY because of their donations. We're able to be in facilities like we're in now and be able to do things in recruiting where we truly can compete with anybody in the country. And without those resources, that would not be the case. I'd like to thank Becky Bowman and her staff at Vickery Hall, Wayne Kaufman, Reggie Simpkins, Yashika Martin do an excellent job. Many professors give up their Saturdays. Colonel Sandy Edge in the business department gives up his weekends in January to come help us. All the way to our pilots, James Allison, Dan Auerblaster, Jason Williams do an excellent job. And it's not always on schedule, maybe like normal flights would be. There's many times where we get in the plane and say, hey, we've changed our plans, and instead of going to Raleigh, we're going to Miami. And they just jump in and take us. Into our compliance office, Stephanie Ellison, her staff do a great job. Brad Woody, Amanda Gray, Andy Campbell are awesome people to work with. The staffs with Airmark and all the food that we have here for our recruits on visits, and the staff over at the Martin Inn do a great job. And Coach Sweeney hit on this. Our players are probably our best recruiters that we have. If we can just get our recruits around our players, then we have a great shot. And then our support staff here at the West End Zone, Coach Woody McCorvey, Andy Johnston, Brad Scott, Mike Dooley, Don Munson, Daniel Bassett, Lisa Chan, Jeff Davis, James Trapp, Milt Louder, Loretto Jackson, and then some of the ladies that work here in the athletic department as administrators that do a great job helping our coaches, Jill Wilkes. And by the way, before anybody asks, Jill is the one that's the Twilight fan. So anybody that has questions about those photos, that was in Jill Wilkes' office. Myself and Coach Elliott actually have never seen Twilight, so I'm sorry to disappoint anybody there. But also Miss Beth Douglas, Jennifer Benton, Ren Wyndham, Joey Batson, his staff in the weight room, Danny Poole, his staff in the training room, Abe Reed and his staff in the equipment room, Rick Bagby, his staff in the video department, and Gary Wade and his staff with facilities. You know, just a great example. You know, it could be a Friday. I have a big-time recruit coming in. I can call Gary Wade and ask him if he can come out here and turn on the lights, and maybe I take a recruit out, and at 10:30 at night I need the lights to go off. And Gary will be there every time that I call. And so it's just those kind of people that on a day like today nobody sees, but really for this whole class to come together, it takes a large group, and I just wanted to start off by thanking them. So at this time I'll take any questions.
Was there anybody you disappointed that you couldn't convince to come here? Today you knew they weren't going to, but was there anybody that stood out that you really tried to convince them to come here and you just wasn't able to do it?
Well, whenever I was growing up, I always liked going fishing. And I can remember I had choices. You can go fish in this pond and catch a bunch of small fish, or you can go over to this pond. You might not catch as many, but the ones you catch are going to be really big. And I was always the guy that liked to go to that pond and have a chance to catch those big ones, knowing that you're going to get some big ones on the hook and maybe lose them, but maybe having the opportunity to catch some big ones. So, you know, I think Coach Sweeney and the staff here have done a great job, administration, of giving us an opportunity where we truly can compete and recruit for the top players in the country. And whenever you get in that realm, you're going to miss, you're not going to get them all. There's some other very strong programs, and I know myself, you know, being involved with the university as a player back in 1999 and just over the last 14 years, that's one change that I've seen is Clemson now has an opportunity and has shown to be successful going toe-to-toe with some of the top programs in the country from a recruiting perspective. And when you do that, you're going to get your share, but you're also going to lose some. So obviously, every year there's some guys that you want. But like Coach Sweeney said, we're awfully excited about the guys that choose to come to Clemson, and it's a special place. And if it's right for them, then they're here.
Lose interest in the kid maybe because of his parents.
I wouldn't say directly because of his parents, but it is definitely you're recruiting the whole family to join the program, and so everybody has to be on the same page. And so if there are sometimes maybe parents that don't want their son here, then we're not going to go against their wishes, but we definitely try to develop relationships with not just the prospect, with his entire family.
Land Alexander today?
Yeah, as the recruiting coordinator, is really good. As you're standing in a room and Coach Sweeney is on one side and Coach Venables is on the other side, and a lot of people ask, "Did you know? Do you know?" And you do have an idea of what maybe that prospect has told you, but at the same time, it's different whenever all of a sudden they get in front of that TV camera and they're sitting there with all their family and friends back home. They can change their mind in a hurry, and you've had your heart broken before in those same type of situations. But I think obviously we felt that defensive back was the number one need in this class. McKenzie's been a guy that we picked out from day one that we feel like's a franchise corner, similar to maybe where we were 2 years ago at the receiver position, knowing that going into that 2011 class that we were going to need to sign some playmakers at the receiver position that maybe could have an impact early. And we feel like McKenzie has that ability now to maybe help the secondary along with some of the other guys. And so it was a big part of just a finishing touch to what we feel like is a great class.
If you targeted defensive back as sort of the biggest need, you certainly sort of made a big impact right up here on signing day to add to it.
Yeah, like I said, some of the young men that we're going to decide today we knew about previously, and they wanted to wait to signing day, and so we kept their wishes. But there were a couple on signing day today, defensive backs that we weren't sure 100%. But yeah, it's definitely been a focus, and I think they're coming in at a good time. Coach Reed's about to enter his first spring here at Clemson, and getting into next fall, and so all those guys will get a fresh start. And I definitely think competition helps each position. I know it helped my position at wide receiver, and I know it'll do the same thing with the defensive backs here over the next couple of years.
Jeff, can you talk a little bit about the two wide receivers you did get? I mean, those are the guys that you're going to coach, and I know Dabo said that it's important to position coach really like those guys.
Absolutely. Starting off with Mike Williams, had him in camp this summer and been watching him for the last 2 years, and just a very big frame, 6'5". A guy that's going to continue to develop physically. But the thing that stands out with him is his ball skills. He's got really, really good ball skills, very athletic, great basketball player. And once we had him in camp, he was the guy after about 3 reps, you knew, yes, this is one of those elite guys. It's going to be a special player. And Coach Marion Hobby did a great job recruiting him. And, he could have been one of those guys to wait to the very end and would have definitely have had a lot of attention with the opportunities that he had. But as coaches, we were very excited that he decided to commit this summer. And then Kyron Priester is a guy that, like Coach said, we were very involved with early in the process. He came over here several times, and before maybe we were able to get him to that point, we filled up at the wide receiver position. And so whenever a couple spots were open, he was the first guy that we called. And Kyron, because of his size at 6'2", he gives you a little bit of versatility that he could play a number of different positions for the wide receivers, as far as our 9, where DeAndre Hopkins played this past year, or our 5, where Jerron Brown Sr. Played for the last couple of years, and then obviously the 2-man spot where Sammy's played. Kyron's a guy, because of his size, he kind of meets all 3 of those requirements for those 3 positions, and so because of that versatility, it'll probably allow him to make an impact sooner than later.
What was your philosophy on need versus best available player, knowing that this could be a top 10 team and maybe positioned better this year to compete for some high stakes deals?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of our jobs as coaches, and maybe one of the burdens that I take as a recruiting coordinator is what are the needs to help our current team for next year. And obviously we feel that we've got a very solid team coming back, a lot of experienced guys. It's been a young team for the last couple of years, but defensive backs was definitely the number one need. It was evident before the season and throughout the year that for us to be able to have a chance to make a strong run like we're planning on doing, that we needed to get some help in the secondary. And so I think that starts your class, and then once you fill those needs, then it does become the next best player. And then also the other thing that goes into this is your 2014 class, and that's something that a lot of people maybe don't look at, but as coaches, we have the 2013 class, and then on the other side we have the 2014. And so, maybe you're making decisions. Do I take a third receiver or do I wait? Because I really feel like we have a chance to sign 2 special receivers in the 14 class. And so there's some calculations that you have to do based off where you are with some of these 14 players. And so rather than maybe go on a guy late that you don't know as much about, there's a better guy if you can just wait, an extra 12 months. So you look at your roster, do we think we can wait 12 months, to wait on this guy? And so there's definitely that goes into it as well.
Y'all trying to take a specific number of corners and a specific number of safeties, or just looking for the best DBs out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, that starts off that way, and I think once you kind of fill each need at corner safety, then the next question is maybe somebody that's versatile enough to play either positions as well as the nickel. And there's a couple guys in this class that we think, kind of like I was talking about Kyron earlier, that his makeup allows him to kind of play any one of those 3 positions. There's a couple of these defensive backs that we think will have the potential to have the diversity, I guess, to play multiple positions in the backfield.
Jeff, how you talked about it earlier about how when Coach Swinney goes into a home, how he can kind of close things. Can you talk about, break that down a little bit about how he's able to go in and get some of these guys to swing towards Clemson?
Well, I think that's a very good point. I think one of the strengths in our recruiting is our head coach, number one, enjoys recruiting. He's involved with it. And the other thing is he's very personable. And I think what's happened a little bit in the college game is a lot of these head coaches maybe that we're recruiting against, or have been doing it for so long that there's really this shield that's up. And, if you just ask them to, where are you right now while they're doing a home visit, they probably don't even know what city they are or really who they're talking to. They're just there giving the same message. And Coach Swinney is just so real. And the players can see that, and they're attracted to that because maybe he's similar to some coaches that they've had along the way that have meant a lot to them throughout their high school career. And so because of his personality, his energy, his passion for Clemson and for the program really resonates with our prospects. And so, we can tell as we go through the process early on, we can tell that, this young man's really going to like Coach Swinney and he's going to get along really well. And this young man's, a Clemson kind of guy. And so that's something that we try to determine early in the process. And then once we get to that point where Coach Swinney gets involved, it's pretty good for Clemson.
Just in general, can you quantify how much different recruiting is compared to when you started this job 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, just in 2000, I guess it was January of 2009 is when I officially took over as recruiting coordinator. And so this is 13, so that's 4 years. Just in 4 years, it's definitely changed. I think social media is a game changer. You have to be careful as coaches what you're telling these young men. 10 years ago, you could talk to 3 different receivers and tell them, hey, you're my number 1 receiver. Well, and now they all put it out on Twitter. And also, you got to be careful what you write them because they take that letter that you wrote, they snap a picture of it, and it goes out on Twitter. And so these guys are communicating with each other, and they're able to, they keep up with the recruiting game, and so that adds something to it as well. They're able to find out a lot more about the universities and the football programs earlier in the process because of how much information is out there on the internet. And at the same time, as coaches, we're able to find out about these guys at an earlier time because of all the video and stuff that's accessible now that in the past maybe you had to wait till a hard copy came in the mail. And so now the process gets started earlier. There's more information that's going on. There's more communication. The fans that interact with these guys on Twitter, that's kind of the NCAA doesn't know how to handle that or restrict it, and you can see it having an impact. There's certain schools that have a very strong fan base on Twitter, and these guys are getting, 50 and 75, Twitter mentions a day from certain programs, and to a 16, 17-year-old kid, that makes a huge difference. 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't even wasn't even around. And so now there's definitely things that as coaches you have to take into consideration, and it's definitely different. We're very fortunate that our staff is willing to change and willing to kind of keep up with the times that are going on, and technology-wise, it's changing very rapidly.
It's about to get worse. Are you eager for that, or do you have the same trepidation?
Yeah, I think it's a thing that I'm eager for a new challenge. I like change, especially after you've done something, for a certain while, and now they give everybody a new set of rules. And so you look at it, you sit down, and you get your game plan. Like, I get excited listening to Coach Sweeney talking about the new staffing and everything that we're going to have to hire here at Clemson. And so, I'll sit back along with our staff and really think about that and try to be creative in some of the stuff that we do, because it's going to open that up. But at the same time, I think 10 years from now, we're going to all look at it and go, what have we created? If we could just go back to the way that it used to be, I think it'd be a lot easier for the prospect and for the coaches. But that's society. That's where we are. It's changing, and if you don't keep up with it, you'll get left behind. And so we're gonna definitely be studying those rules between now and August, and find ways to help better market Clemson using those new rules.
How much will Coach Sweeney bounce off of you when y'all make those decisions?
Well, he talks with our staff a good bit. I mean, we spend a lot of time as a staff talking about that, and there'll definitely be input that he'll ask from myself and some of the other coaches on staff, as we go to make those decisions. And it's no different than anything we do, not just recruiting, but personnel and offense, defense. Everything we do is, within our staff, there's definitely, you have a chance to have a voice, which is nice.
Jeff, obviously Crowder was sort of the late addition to the class. Can you sort of address his recruiting?
Yeah, Tyrone was the guy that we were probably on him for as long as anybody through the whole process. So it's kind of fitting that he maybe was the last recruit to sign, because he was probably one of the earliest guys that we offered, and just recognized it's very strong. He's set a lot of weightlifting records in the state of North Carolina. Very physical young man. Shrine Bowl, I had several coaches. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to go to any Shrine Bowl practices anymore, which that rule needs to be changed. But I've had several high school coaches that were working at the Shrine Bowl that called me and said, man, this Tyrone Crowder is one of the most physical linemen that we've had the last couple of years. And so that's good to hear. He's a guy that, I think we can get in the program, definitely can help us. And you're always looking for hard-nosed, physical offensive linemen, and I think that's exactly what we've got with Tyrone Crowder.
Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you. If anybody has any individual questions, I'll step over here for a minute.
Thank you.